be a sponge, and then bring the juice.
By focusing on your improvement, by focusing on your progress, and eliminating any fixed mindset that you may have and acts of perfectionism, then you encourage your own mastery.
On some level, we do what we want to do 24 hours a day. Now, sometimes it may not seem like that, but if I'm choosing to work instead of sleep, what I'm actually saying is keeping my job is more important than sleeping.
I'm tired of this. I'm tired of getting beat. What can I do to get over this hump? So mentally, that's when I kind of put that forefront, like, hey, it's either all or nothing.
I like to put failure in quotations because I don't believe that failure is true failure if you're looking at it with the right mindset.
The truth is, the journey to greatness is hard. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes focus, and every day you have to decide what you value, what you want to pursue, and what you want to achieve. And if you dig deep enough, if you push hard enough, we all have what it takes to be great. Welcome to the Edge of Greatness. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Edge of Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Charles Schultz, and today I have with me a very special guest. He is the founder and CEO of Focus 3, a speaker, author, and coach, Tim Kight. Thank you so much for taking time and joining me today.
Charles, it's great to be with you on Christmas week of all things. Can't believe it's about to be Christmas.
Oh, I know. It definitely came up fast this year. I got two little ones at home, and so time is definitely flying by faster than I'm used to. So
how old are your kids, Charles?
The youngest turns 1 next week.
Okay.
So right after Christmas, and the oldest
boy or girl?
That one's a girl, Sailor. And then Hunter is the oldest. He's 3.
Hunter and Sailor?
Yep.
Fantastic. Now,
Yep.
those are great ages. They're great ages. Yeah, I love it. That's cool.
They're tons of fun. So what I want to start with today is when you decided to leave OSU as a track athlete to go to UCLA, what's something today, Tim, would tell college Tim to make that transition a little more smooth for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question because obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, as you get older, if you're paying attention, you learn some things. I've always said experience is a great teacher, but only if you stop and invest the time to reflect and think on it. I know a lot of people that have experiences that they don't learn from them. Another way to think about that, experience is inevitable, learning is optional. You're going to have experiences. Do you have the discipline and skill to stop and learn from them? So that kind of goes into all this. I've spent my adult life, my professional career, and will spend the rest of my life teaching the principles and disciplines of elite performance. It's what I do. It's what we do. Leadership, culture, competitive mindset, behavior. I've learned so many things, Charles, since I was in college. And then not only have I learned them, I've documented them, put them into deliverables so that I can, myself and my firm can teach those principles and disciplines to others. So when I went to UCLA, I was a talented athlete. I was the high school national champion in my track event, and it was the hurdles. I'd won the state my junior year. I'd won the indoor 70-yard high hurdle championship my senior year. I'd won the outdoor 330 intermediate national championship at the end of my senior year there in the June of 1971. And what I did not know then, and what I do know now, is how little talent has to do with greatness. And I was talented, but I wasn't disciplined. I was talented, but I didn't have the mindset to take my talent to its maximum level. And I've since then studied this and continue to, and I even developed a documented what I call the 5 choices that elite performers make, 5 decisions they make at the edge, which is what you do when your talent runs out and you still need to build skill. So if today's Tim were to talk to yesterday's Tim, I would say, hey, dude, learn the 5, make the 5 decisions and grow beyond your talent.
I love that. And I agree completely that talent is only going to take you so far if you don't learn the skills that are required to, one, grow that talent past your certain point of just God-given abilities, and 2, to sustain it once you get there. So you said there's 5 key components. Let's dive into those a little bit. What are the 5 for you? What are those?
Well, yeah, I come to 5 choices, and it's relevant because of what you and I are talking about. So the 5 choices, technically I call it 4+1.
Okay.
Just for fun, right?
Yeah.
And it's we speak of something called the edge, and the edge is an actual place in everyone's personal and professional journey where they get to a spot where skill building, getting better, gets hard and uncomfortable. And it's usually just beyond your talent. So I like to phrase the edge is the place where you need to build skill that you don't have talent for. And I think of all the people who are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, think about me and my own journey, where all these things here at my age now, where I've run out of talent, Charles. I don't have any talent left. I mean, if I'm going to get better at something in life, it's not going to be easy or comfortable because, I'm not 32 years old anymore. And the human brain becomes fully formed in your late 20s, middle to late 20s, early 30s, about that time. Your brain becomes fully formed according to its genetic wiring. We used to think the brain couldn't grow any more new neural networks, new neural pathways. We thought the brain became fixed at that time. As it turns out, it's exactly the opposite. The human brain is plastic. It grows. It develops throughout your entire life. So I am able at my age, 68, to build new neural pathways and new skills. It's called neuroplasticity is the term. And it's a really cool thing. So here are and it takes choices and discipline, no talent required. So choice number 1 is be relentless in focus and effort. That's the first decision you got to make at the edge when you want to get better at getting better. You want to take a current skill to a new standard, or you want to build a whole new skill. Number 1 is you need relentless focus and effort. And focus is what you give your attention to and what you say no to, by the way. So it's focus and filter. Say yes to the stuff that matters and no to the stuff that doesn't. And a lot of things that don't matter are attractive.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, it's and downright seductive, So the elite skill builder says yes, focuses on what matters and filters out what doesn't. So they're relentless about that. They're relentlessly saying no to this and yes to that. The second thing about you got to be relentless too is effort. You got to be, you call it grit, you call it perseverance, you call it persistence. I call it relentless effort. I mean, you just have to keep swinging. So that's choice number 1 is be relentless in focus and effort. And again, this theme, no talent required. It takes no talent to be relentless in focus and effort. And maybe what's really sad is to see talented people fail in their focus and effort. That's sad.
I totally agree there. You see that all too often, that somebody's got just endless amounts of talent, but they just want to rely on that talent and they don't want to continue to focus their efforts and be disciplined. And they want to go have the fun stuff, like you said, the distracting pieces that just draw their energy away.
Well, you just used a word I was going to inject. So we're thinking along the same lines. Part of being relentless in focus and effort is to be a creator of energy. Mm-hmm. Effort is a lot, that's energy. So be elite at creating your own energy. You can get energy from 2 places: externally from the environment around you, or internally from within you. Extrinsic is the outside, intrinsic is on the inside. Every elite performer I've ever studied or coached or consulted to created intrinsic energy. They didn't tether their energy to the external environment. Because if you allow the external environment to be the determinant of your energy, what kind you have and how much you have, as the environment goes up and down, positive, negative, neutral, interested, engaged, your personal energy is going to fluctuate tremendously. What the elite are able to do is create their own energy and bring their energy to the situations of life and sport and school. And that is, Charles, that's a superpower.
Yeah.
So anybody listening to this, don't be a person who is tethering your emotional state and your energy level to the environment. No, create your own. And when things are negative, bring your positive energy to those things that are negative. Hugely important.
Yeah. That sounds very similar to something that I use is people like to ride the winds of motivation. They just wait for the winds to blow and them to feel motivated, and they don't want to move when they're not motivated. And instead of creating that motivation internally and getting the boat moving, or whatever the analogy you want to use is, they sit there and they wait for the wind to blow. And then the next thing you know, the wind's blowing the wrong way. And they're like, well, now what do I do? And there's no direction or focus on what they're trying to accomplish.
I've long thought and frequently say that the defining moment in mental toughness is the choice you make when how you feel doesn't align with what you need to do. And I say, don't wait to feel good before you do good. And I learned long ago, how you feel is not a great reference point for what you should do. And those, again, that's why we say relentless and focus and energy. Create it. Yeah. Be focused, bring your energy, bring the juice. And different kinds of situations, by the way, call for different kinds of energy. By that, I don't mean you're always hyped up right now. Sometimes the energy that you need is to slow down and listen to people around you. And we'll get into that in a minute. But so that's decision number one, at the edge. Decision number two is embrace productive discomfort. We've all heard about the comfort zone. We've all been told, that it's in the struggle that we get better. And you know why we've heard about it? Because it's true. And the reason why you have to embrace productive discomfort is the only way you grow and get better is to get just outside the edge of your current capability level. You have to try new things or take what you currently do to a new standard, a new level. And when you go beyond your current capability, by definition, it's going to be uncomfortable. And that discomfort simply marks the old way resisting the new way. That's all it is. And here's what happens. Average people, when they are uncomfortable, they back off. Elite performers are the ones who, when they feel discomfort, they go, oh yeah, that's where I want to be. Oh yeah, this is the productive zone. Yes, this discomfort's really good for me. This means I just exceeded my current talent level. Yep, this is where I grow the most. And what's interesting, and I want to make this crystal clear, when I use the word elite, I'm not talking about levels of talent. I'm talking about elite and the things that I'm describing right here. I believe the edge is where average stops and elite begins. And I believe talent is a gift. I believe elite is a choice. So to me, the elite person is the one who makes these 5 choices we're talking about. So elite people are relentless in focus and effort, and elite people, they embrace productive discomfort. And I'll also emphasize the verb there, embrace. Yeah. They don't just tolerate it. They don't just accept it. They embrace it. They understand the value of getting just beyond their current capability.
See, I believe in turn that we all have the ability to achieve excellence and be great and do these things. Like you were saying, that talent isn't the determinant factor. So when you look back over your career of working with elite performers and people who are working at a high level, who is somebody who consistently put themselves in that discomfort area that just impressed you, that they kept going back there over and over and over again? Because obviously there's a lot of guys who do it and they'll stay there for a while and then they kind of ease out of it. But I'm sure there's somebody who kind of like, that was the guy who just constantly kept pushing that limit, pushing that button, pushing that button. Is there somebody like that you can think of?
Well, there's a lot of people like that I can think of, many of whom wouldn't show up on the radar screen of your listeners because they're people in a business or an organization someplace who, again, they're not going to be people, but I'll go back to someone that your listeners have heard of, and you in a way kind of reference him as John Wooden. And the guys that he coached. And when you watch UCLA basketball back in the Coach Wooden days, he was a master at getting individuals and everyone on the team to perform at the edge, to train at the edge, to go to the point of discomfort and stay there until they got better. John would say, if you avoid discomfort, you eliminate learning. And that's just, and then when I ran track, track's uncomfortable. I mean, in order to get good, I ran the 440 hurdles in college, which is a quarter mile over 10 hurdles. And there were Olympians on our team. But UCLA track in the early 70s was the center of gravity for the sport. And a guy that trained there, Fred Dixon, who was in the decathlon that following Olympic year. And he didn't go to UCLA, but he trained there and became good friends. I mean, there was a guy that I just saw embrace productive discomfort and constantly was doing the work he needed to do to advance all of his times and distances and jumps, and it was just, it's really, really cool to see people, who do that. Tell you somebody else that you all may know is Terry Mclaren, who is a receiver at Ohio State, and now he's with the Washington football team. And Terry came in as a good athlete. He left elite, and Ohio State football is hard. It's tough. The standards are high, and Terry converted himself into a truly great receiver. Michael Thomas did the same thing at Ohio State. His final 2 years, embraced that discomfort and just kept taking his performance to new levels. I think Justin Fields did it. I mean, there are a number of folks in the Ohio State realm that I would definitely say, yeah, that guy, pretty cool. Other people, swimmers in Ohio State swimming, particularly the women's team this past few seasons, unbelievable commitments to this stuff. So another way to think about this, about embracing productive discomfort, if you want the great things, you got to say yes to the hard things.
Yeah.
You just do. So think about those first two things. Think about be relentless in focus and effort, and embrace productive discomfort. Just the value of those alone, phenomenal.
One more thing real quick before we move on to number 3 is you mentioned several times productive discomfort. And I think that's something important to hammer home, because we're not just looking to get uncomfortable, right? We're looking for productive discomfort. So it's got to be targeted. It's got to be purposeful. It's got to have some type of tangible benefit to what you're trying to be uncomfortable with, right? You're not just going out there and like working out till you can't move, or you're unable to pick yourself up off the turf. You're looking for things that are going to be just beyond your current skill set, that make you uncomfortable, that aren't just random things of uncomfort, right?
Well, go back to the first decision, which is be relentless in focus and effort.
Yeah.
So that's that because you're focusing on what matters and you're eliminating what doesn't matter, and you're putting all your effort into it. That means you now know what needs to be repped in order to get better. You do the right sets the right way. Like I go to the gym all the time, and I watch some of these folks in the gym, just the normal, LA Fitness or whatever. And it's shocking the poor form that people have when they lift weights or in these machines. And I'm a diehard coach, so I always want to go talk to them, but I don't, because obviously that's not my role, and they probably would resent me saying, like guys that do curls and their arms are bent and they're bending like this, or guys that pull down for doing lats, they're going like this, and it's just like, so you're right. It's not just discomfort; it's productive discomfort. And what provides the productivity is focusing on the right things the right way.
Yeah.
So you do your thinking and you're planning up front. You're relentless and giving your attention to the right way to do that and rep that. They would call that intentional practice, is another way to describe it, or deep practice or deliberate practice. Yeah. Those that are studying this stuff. And so you're right. Productive means you're practicing the right things the right way.
So then we're heading into number 3, which is.
Yeah, the number 3 is use mistakes as feedback.
Okay.
If you think about the edge and you think about trying to make progress in terms of elevating your competency and your skill, or building a new skill altogether, once you're outside your comfort zone, you're not that good at that thing, because you're at the edge of your current capabilities. Therefore, by definition, you will make mistakes. And this is a hard one for people. And in fact, this is very hard for talented people. Talented people are not accustomed to making mistakes, because they tend to accelerate to skill in their talent zone. And then they avoid those things they're not talented at, because it feels good to be talented. And so the people who are, not always, but some that are talented, avoid making mistakes. But mistakes are your friend. Mistakes give you feedback about the gap between what you should be doing and what you are doing. And I call it coaching the gap, or get in the gap. That's what I call it, where I want to get in that gap, where this is my current level. That's where I want to get to. And I want to get just in here. And so the mistake tells me what I'm doing wrong. Mistake instructs me and informs me. A mistake is an opportunity to go again with greater insight. You do a rep, make a mistake, get feedback, go again. And then make the effort, make a mistake, get feedback, and then go again and again, and keep repping that cycle until you start to develop competency and gain that. But people don't like how mistakes make them see or how they feel. So they think, and that's just wrong. Tom Brady is famous for this, where, you know, he doesn't want to know what he does well. He knows he does well. Tom Brady wants to know what he doesn't do well, and he wants that feedback. So that use mistakes as feedback is a mindset, and it's about getting better, not about protecting your ego. And that's a key point.
Yeah, I think a lot of today's younger generation, especially, the fear of mistakes stems from the constant viewing of the highlight reel version of people on social media. All you see is the good stuff. You don't realize that person getting to that good level made thousands and thousands of mistakes, thousands and thousands of reps, and you're seeing the best one.
Yeah.
And then when you go out and try it, you're like, oh, that doesn't look right. I can't do this.
Yeah. I mean, we've all tried something new and discovered when it's hard. And number two, we felt awkward, and we looked awkward, you know?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately what most people do. They don't like to feel awkward. They don't like to look awkward. And so they avoid it. And it's unbelievably counterproductive when you want to get better at something, to stay in the comfort zone and avoid making mistakes of those kind, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and give it a shot. Make sure you know what great looks like. You know, the standard, give it a shot, rep it. If you miss the standard, understand why and go again.
Yeah. Can you tell me of a time when a mistake led to a future breakthrough for you because of the mindset that you carry?
Oh, I've got a lot of them. I mean, I go back to the very early starting my company. Whether you get a new job inside an existing company or you start your own company like mine, I mean, the number of things I wasn't sure about, I thought I understood, and selling, marketing, finance, hiring people, developing content, delivering, all of those areas, I made significant mistakes in all of them. Getting married, thinking I was listening to my wife effectively when I wasn't. And then you get feedback about, hey, you don't listen very well. And then, of course, when you get feedback from your spouse about you don't listen very well, what do you do normally? If you're a normal human being, what do?
No, I'm listening. What are you talking about?
You get defensive.
Yeah.
I get defensive, right? And when you get defensive, you become even less attentive to it. Being a dad, learn how to. So everything I've done in my life, as I got into it and started to execute the role or the activity, I discovered areas where I flat out just didn't know or thought I knew better than I actually did and made mistakes. And I got to get specific feedback about it, you know? So my life is full of those things, Charles.
Yep.
And I'm not done yet. I'm not done. I mean, I'm never retiring, and I'm going to live the rest of my life doing what I do for a living. And they're going to have to, come and get me and put me in the old folks' home from the road, because I want to be out there serving clients my whole life long.
That sounds a lot like what I told my wife the other day. It's like, well, I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So this is this is what I am. I'm going to keep rolling. So moving on, number 4, what do we got?
And it's the big one. This is the one that I think really stumps most people. It's kind of related to the prior one, but here it is. Number 4, it's the 4th choice. No talent required, is defeat fear. Defeat fear. The number of people today who operate from fear or anxiety is staggering. And I'll say this for men, any of the men listening to this podcast, a lot of men are afraid of admitting that they're afraid. They're twice removed. Women are a lot more open to talking about their fears than men are. But the fact of the matter is we all operate from some degree of fear. Fear is real. Not all fear is bad. So when I say, defeat fear, I'm talking about acknowledge the fear that holds you back and then deal with it effectively. Now, here's why fear is so bad. There's 3 things that fear does. It distorts what we see, it disrupts how we feel, and it limits what we do. That's what fear does. I'll say it again. It distorts what we see. When we're in a fear state, we don't see situations clearly. We don't see ourselves clearly. You find you focus and fixate on what you're afraid of, which means you now have a distorted view. Number 2, it disrupts how you feel. Right? When you're in a state of fear and anxiety, you don't feel optimum. You don't feel confident by definition. And there's all kinds of physiological feelings too, by the way, that are bad. And then number 3, fear limits what we do. Fear says, don't do that. Don't try that. Don't tempt that. And we fear lots of things. We mentioned earlier, we fear looking bad. We fear making a mistake and feeling bad. We fear that we discover that we're not capable. Fear of not belonging. We have fear of all kinds of things. And so what elite performers have to do is learn to recognize when fear happens and then use mental mechanisms to defeat it. I didn't say eliminate it, because you can't, you don't even want to, but you can defeat it. And basically fear is mismanagement of your imagination. People have said, false evidence appearing real is an old acronym for what fear stands for. There's some of that, but the point is that if you focus on things that are anxiety inducing and you have negative self-talk about those things, you will feel fear. Don't feed the anxiety with fearful self-talk. And that's the key. You got to master the voice in your head. You got to master the voice in your head. And what courageous people do, courageous people, by the way, are afraid. Fear is not the absence. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is knowing what you need to do and doing it anyway, despite your fear. So what elite people do, what courageous people do, is they focus on what they need to do. They talk positive to themselves about doing it, and then they go do it. And that's defeating fear. It doesn't eliminate it. It's defeating it. And that's the key for those of you listening to this that suffer from or have anxieties. So this is happening. You feel anxious and afraid. Okay, got it. Now, one, where's your fear come from? And it didn't come from the situation. It came from how you see the situation and your self-talk about it. For example, I was diagnosed in March of 2020 with stage 4 cancer, which most people who follow me on social, almost everybody who follows me knows that. And so I'm in the middle of I've got terminal cancer. I mean, I hope it's not going to be terminal for a long time, but it's stage 4, which means not curable. And there's all kinds of, and chemo, and I'm on meds all the time. And my physical feelings are, I'm never going to feel great again because of all the meds I got to keep taking. And each successive medication gets a little bit more severe in terms of side effects. And, I'll have to go back to chemo here in a few years, no doubt, as more tumors show up. So be it. Well, here's the key to me: no fear. And when there is, some sense of anxiety, I know what to do. So my focus is on action, and my focus is on productive self-talk. And I'm telling you, the voice in your head is a powerful force. And you either have a disciplined voice or a default voice. The disciplined voice is positive and productive, and it tends to whisper. Mm-hmm. The default voice is negative and counterproductive, and it tends to shout. So what you need to do is diminish this voice and amplify this voice. So I say to myself all the time, best grandpa ever. I want to be there for the grandkids. I want to serve my clients. So I'm having these bouts of physical discomfort and low physical energy because of the medication. My self-talk's immediate, and it's positive, it's productive, and it's energy creating. And I just don't frame things in a fearful way. And here's another phrase I say to myself: cancer will determine when I die. It will not decide how I live.
I love that.
And that's, I defeat fear that way.
Yeah.
Now, is it scary to have stage 4 cancer? Holy cow, is it scary? I'm getting scans at the James at Ohio State on January 4. And that's an anxiety-inducing day. You go in, you get scanned, they do 2 or 3 different kinds of scans, and they're looking for tumors. Mm-hmm. Which, when you have stage 4 cancer, at some point, tons of tumors are going to show up. So it's not a matter of if you're going to have tumors, it's a matter of when. Well, if I sit around and worry, I couldn't do this podcast with you today. I wouldn't have a great Christmas. I wouldn't be there fully for my wife and my kids and my son-in-law and 2 daughters-in-law, and let alone my 4 grandkids. So when I go up to Columbus on January 3rd and I check in at the James to get my scans done, productive self-talk. Let's do this. If there's tumors, we'll deal with it. If there's no tumors, either way, I'm good. Yeah. So defeat fear is massive, but you can't defeat what you don't acknowledge.
That makes me think of a couple other things with fear is, I've heard the forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And I think that positive self-talk is, You're going to face
like
everything
that.
and rise. You're going to just,
I've heard the first one and not heard the second one. Face everything and rise.
I don't know where I heard that. I think it was from a song, honestly. And I just happened to, or I saw it on a picture on a meme or something. I don't know, but it stuck with me because it makes sense. Because like you said, you can't eliminate the fear. It's going to show up. It's going to present itself, but you can face it and you can rise from it. You can go through it and then you're stronger on the other side. And I think that's the valuable piece for all this is that you're going to have moments of fear, but you have two choices in that moment. You can forget everything and run, or you can face everything and rise and be stronger for it.
The key is you can't live by the feeling.
Yes.
And that's one of the things about battling cancer that's interesting is that, and I actually called a guy called me the other day, a coach told me that a friend of his, who's another coach, was diagnosed with cancer similar to mine, late stage metastatic cancer, and was really wanting to know some advice and some thoughts. So I share with him a number of things, and it's just you're going to feel physically down. You're going to feel mentally and physically, particularly physically, just because of the nature of the drugs. So you've got to make the decision to create in your mind the energy that you need to fight this thing and do your job and love your family and be up. You have to choose that. And I deeply believe energy is a choice, not a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to frame it in an effective fashion. And it's daily. And when it comes to cancer like this, it's not like, oh, I did a few things, I'm okay now. It's no, this is, hopefully I'm going to be fighting this fight for 20 years, but if it's only 2 more years, then so be it. But the reality is that this is mental. That the vast majority of the battle for those of us in this disease is going to be mental. They have the drugs, they've got the chemo, they got the radiation, they got surgical techniques. There's stuff they're going to give you. And it's going to be, it's going to do what it's going to do. Your job as a patient is to make wise decisions and bring the right mindset to the table day after day after day. And, defeating fear is a huge piece of it.
Yeah.
By the way, when you're anxious, your body releases chemicals that are harmful and toxic. So it's not just some kind of psychological state, it's a physiological state as well.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like my mom recently went through a cancer bout herself. And so she's been cancer-free for a while now, but I saw that
awesome.
same.
How long has she been cancer-free?
I want to say it's been a little over a year now.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah,
Congrats.
it's been a little over a year, but she had that same mindset. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to face it head on. I'm going to come through it. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to stay happy. I'm going to focus my energy. And I honestly think it's made her braver on the back end to live fully and be present and to do more. And it's been a special treat to watch that battle for her, because I think she's even more incredible than she was before, which is hard to believe because she was pretty awesome to begin with.
Oh,
so
that's awesome. What's your mom's first name, Charles?
Cindy.
Cindy. Well, prayers for Cindy and congrats to her for her battle and her courage. And, the battle is in the mind, which is why defeat fear is on this list. And your mind either puts up barriers that hold you back or it builds bridges that move you forward.
Yeah.
And our task in life is to build bridges, mental bridges.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the plus one?
So the plus one is to be coachable.
Okay.
And when I define coachability as the willingness and the discipline to accept teaching and feedback without resistance or excuses. And the fact is there's limits to how much we can observe and evaluate our own performance. We need someone to give us feedback. We need people to instruct us. And everybody who's elite, if they're truly elite, they've got a coach or coaches in their life who observe what they do and give them feedback on a regular, timely basis, and they can take that feedback and then use it to improve the way they do what they do. And again, so that willingness and that ability to receive feedback and instruction without getting defensive or making excuses or complaining is massive. Mm-hmm. And candidly, we don't have enough coachable people in the world. And what's ironic is think about how many, teachers in school, coaches of athletic programs, what do they do for a living? They tell people what to do. So who coaches the coaches?
Nobody.
Who teaches the teachers?
Right.
And same thing in business. I mean, coaching is a powerful thing and it is something that we all need. So I think everyone needs a noticer and a truth teller in their life.
I like that.
Somebody in your life that you've authorized to look at you and give you feedback. And then we all need to be appreciative and humble that someone would be willing to invest the time to give us feedback to make us better. And that's because it's basically what I said before. You can protect your ego or you can get better. You can't do both. And so coachability just becomes really important. So think about those 4+1. Be relentless in focus and effort, embrace productive discomfort, use mistakes as feedback, defeat fear, and be coachable. 5 choices. None of them require talent. They're available to literally absolutely everybody, but no one can make a choice in those 5 areas except you. And then also think about if even one of those is missing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe those are a system of choices, a constellation of choices, connected 5-spoke wheel, if you will, that you got to make all 5. I mean, if just choose one. I mean, what if you weren't relentless in focus and effort, but you had the rest? Well, you're not doing the work in the direction you ought to be doing. You got distracted, or you failed at number 2. You only do comfortable work.
Yep.
You fail at number 3. Your fear derails you, right? So you can see how that works. So I think I've seen those 5 decisions being made in business and athletics, and when someone and imagine building a culture of that, where an entire team of athletes and competitors do those 5 things. That's pretty cool stuff.
No, absolutely. I think that's awesome. I'm gonna go back and have to listen to that, make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing on my end, because I think it's easy to get distracted and miss one of those pieces and lose it for a while. And I think it takes constant effort to be honest with yourself and to, like you said, get the feedback, get the coaching, be relentless and focused, and all those things take time, takes effort, and you have to do it daily. You can't skip out on it and expect it to stay sharp and up to date in what it needs to be doing. It's like software, it needs updated, right?
But yeah, we use the phrase or we use the principle of slow, small, daily, that all improvements, growth, change happens slow, small, and requires daily effort. So slow, small, daily is a big piece of what we teach folks. And we all want things big and fast and overnight, and it doesn't work that way. And there is no, in fact, the harder the skill, the higher the standard, the longer it takes. And I always say, if you want the fast, do the slow. If you want the big, do the small. If you want the breakthrough at the end, then do the daily effort. But if you don't do the small, you're not going to get the big. If you don't do the slow, you're not going to get to fast. And if you're overly impatient, you'll never get the breakthrough because you didn't do the daily effort. And that's fundamental neuroscience. Talk to any neuroscientist. That's how the brain works. Slow, small, daily reps, done relentlessly over time is the key.
See, I'm in the physical world. I do a lot of training with like athletes. I think we talked about that last time. And so I always look at the motor recruitment stuff. And when I think of it now with the small kids I have, they start by laying there, then they crawl, then they stand, then they walk, then they run, then they jump. Nobody comes out just full sprints and jumping around. It's small little things over time that become more coordinated and better, just like with the mental side. Small little baby steps, work your way up. You can't run before you walk.
The cumulative impact of daily action repeated over time.
Yeah. Love that.
That's the key. Yes.
So I'm gonna shift gears just a little bit here, and I'm gonna get more into the leadership side of things, because I know that's a big part of what you do as well.
Yep.
There's a couple pictures out there floating around on Twitter, and I saw them recently, and they're older pictures that I've seen before, but it made me think of something that I wanted to ask you about. So both are about a pack of wolves. One of them is a picture of a long stretch of wolves walking through. I want to say it's probably Yellowstone, wherever those pack of wolves are up there. And there's
Yellowstone. You said that because you're watching the TV series. Right?
I love the TV series. You can't go wrong there. But you got 5 in the front.
I want Rip and Beth on my team anytime.
Oh, all day, every day.
All day. Yep.
So you got 5 in the front that are considered to be the weakest and the slowest, and they set the pace. Then you have the 5 strongest behind them, the rest of the pack, 5 more strong, and then the leaders at the very end. The other image is a pack of wolves. They're going through thicker, heavier snow. And out in front is one wolf cutting the path that all the other ones are walking through. And it says something along the lines of, the followers never understand what the leader does to pave the path. So the one's talking about the leader at the back of the pack and letting the pack roll. The other one's talking about leader cutting the way and being out in front. My question is, which one's right?
So you always have to be careful about allegories. An allegory is wonderful because it paints a picture and tells a story that's immediately engaging, and you can put yourself into it or see it or feel it. That's the benefit of an allegory or a proverb or an illustration like that. It's wonderful. But they lack precision and they lack the largeness. So leadership is situational. And I think those are different situations. So there's times when what a leader will do is the leader, by definition, goes first and paves the way, shows the example. There's other times what the leader does is, okay, hey, Julie, I want you to go take the lead on that. I believe in you. This is going to stretch you. It's going to be uncomfortable for you. I get that, but I believe in you and I'll be here for you. I'm not going to abandon you. So it's at the edge for you. So take the 4+1 that we just talked about and go apply it. And I and the rest of the team is here for you. Both of those are appropriate. It all depends on the situation. Yeah. So one of the ultimate, I don't think we talk enough about this, about leadership, is wisdom. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is content. And usually you can process that content pretty quickly and you've got pretty good grasp of it. Or if you're truly intelligent, you've got great grasp of it. Wisdom is knowing how to use that content in a way that's most effective for the greatest number of people. The intelligent person knows what to say. The wise person knows when to shut up. And I got to tell you, we're at a wisdom deficit right now. And I mean, if you want to see the lack of wisdom, just read social media. One, I'm not sure there's intelligence on it much either, but just the amount of foolishness that goes on in IG and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and TikTok and Facebook and then even the mainstream media, it's staggering. So I deeply believe that great leaders need to have a model of what leadership is, a visual model that represents the fundamental, non-negotiable, I call them pillars of leadership or fundamental disciplines. My belief is great leaders do two things. They earn trust and they get results. Those are the two things that they do, and those are related. They earn trust and then they get results. Or to put it to other, they engage with people and then execute through people. And that trust and results together is a powerful combination. And one without the other doesn't work. Trust without results, unacceptable. Results without trust, unsustainable. And when it comes to athletics, you can only push people, athletes, as far as the level of trust that you built with them. And if you try to push athletes really hard without a foundation of trust, you create resentment and resistance. So if we're going to be great at leadership, we have to be great at relationships, trust, and we're going to be great at performance and getting people to do what needs to be done, which includes a lot of things: communication, accountability, how to be supportive and coaching. So to me, go back to that wisdom issue and then understanding what leadership really is. Yeah, I get it. A wolf out front of the pack, paving the way through the snow. And heck, I could make the case that a better metaphor would be all these wolves hunker down under some trees, resting while the snow falls. And and I know they got to go get food and stuff. So, but no, I mean, I love analogies and I love metaphors, and fables, but be careful. There's limits to how much they can teach you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the answer I was hoping for, because when I posted it earlier on Twitter myself, because I like both of them. I think they both serve a purpose. I think there's definitely, like you said, there's a time to plow through and show the way and be the example and set the course so that way people can follow. And then there's another time, like you said, to set people free and let the pack do what you've taught them and trust that, all right, I'm going to bring up the rear and I'm going to let them run for a little bit, and I'm here if they need me, and they can come back and I'm watching over everybody. Yep. And I think that's the important piece of all that. So something we haven't dug into yet, but I'm a big fan of, and I think it's a big staple for what you talk about and you believe in, is the E+R = O. I mean, Can we go a little bit deeper into that for some of my listeners who's not heard it before?
Yeah, it's an equation that I've used for better part of 30 years, and it's event plus response equals outcome. Is E plus R equals O, and it teaches something pretty basic about life and performance. And that is that you don't control events. You do control how you choose to respond, and it's your response that produces an outcome. And the best outcomes come from the best responses. You earn outcomes by how you choose to respond. Every day you make decisions about how to respond to the events and circumstances of life. And the responses that you choose produce the outcomes that you get. What you don't want to do is don't sit around wishing and waiting for a different E, right? And don't complain about events. There's three kinds of events you get. You get helpful events, you get neutral events, and you get painful events. And no one is exempt. We all get all three. I personally love helpful things. I like to get good events. Like I like good things, but that's not what I always get, right? Like my medical situation. Okay, that happened. All right. So what do I control? I don't control the E, I control my response. And so how you manage the R, Charles, is the single greatest factor in the quality of your life. And I love this statement. You want a better O? Choose a better R.
I like that. I like that.
And by the way, choosing a great response doesn't guarantee the outcome that you want. And life's most important things require lots of productive responses over time.
Yeah.
You said it earlier, the cumulative impact of daily responses repeated over time.
Right.
And so that's ERO. And another thing that's interesting is most of the events in your life are predictable, which means you shouldn't be surprised when they happen. You should be prepared. Another way, get good at things that happen a lot, right? It's like we drove down from Columbus to Charlotte yesterday, 7 hours on, most of it on I-23 and then 35 and then 77, long time through West Virginia, and then to Carolina. Well, you drive, that kind of freeway, the number of ridiculous, crazy people on the highway that you see, tailgaters and speeders, well, all of those things are predictable. Every time you drive the freeway, that stuff happens. So you should always be prepared to respond in an above the line, disciplined way. There's zero value in getting upset about those drivers. You just simply manage yourself. But that's just driving. But ERO is great because it allows you to have a system you can apply to any situation and clarify the E that you're in, clarify the O that you want, and then identify the R that you need and go do it.
Yeah.
And that sounds easy. It's simple. It just isn't easy. But that's how it works. And it's very effective, very effective.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things that you clarified on, because I think a lot of people think that, well, I made a good response, I should have a good outcome, but it's not that simple. It's how do we help them shift to the bigger picture, I guess, is the way to look at it. Because I think a lot of times we get stuck wanting to make a change and we're thinking, okay, I'm gonna have a positive response. Let's get this positive outcome. But it takes time for those to accumulate before you start to see those. So how do we help people stop looking so narrow, so close, so short, and open up and see that these positive things that we're doing, these positive responses to the events will eventually give us that outcome that we're looking for?
Well, we've identified 6 disciplines for managing the R that there's a way of doing it consistently over time. And the 6 are this. Number 1 is press pause.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, get your mind right. Number 3 is step up. 4 is adjust and adapt. 5 is make a difference. And 6 is build skill. And I'm talking all these about managing the R. So the purpose of pause is to gain clarity about whatever situation you're in. And we always ask 3 questions. What event do I have? What outcome do I want? What response do I need? That's the operative question. But then get your mind right is the second one. And that goes back to defeating fear and getting yourself out of a disruptive emotional state into a productive one. You said a really cool thing. You said we don't always see clearly, or we see in a limited fashion. We need to see a bigger picture. Well, that's a cognitive challenge for human beings because our perception is limited, but it feels complete. And we call that the spotlight effect. that, think about when you're in a concert or something inside a theater and the house lights all go down and then boom, the spotlight shows one spot on the stage where you don't see hardly anything except what? That one spot. Well, the human brain thinks that spotlight is all that there is. So one of the things that we teach people is ask yourself 6 questions, or well, it's 5 actually. How do I currently see the situation? What do I not see that I need to see? What do I see but I'm discounting? What am I pretending not to see? How do others see it in a way that I don't? I tell people, expand your focus frame. See more, see different, see inside it. That's that wisdom. Yeah. So there's a lot of different mechanisms and competencies that you can bring to manage the R. But the most important one is press pause and see the situation with clarity. And understand, by the way, emotions don't see clearly, right? Remember I said earlier, what does fear do? It distorts what you see, right?
Yeah.
But be aware of that fact. As emotion goes up, clarity goes down.
No, absolutely. Oh, I love that. Thank you. I want to wind down. I could probably talk to you for another hour, but I don't want to do. Obviously, I want to be respectful of your time here. So where's a place that my listeners can follow what you're doing next, stay in touch with where you're at and where you're going, and sure, learn more from you as they go? So
yeah, our website's a great place to go, and it's www.focus3.com, and it's the numeral 3, so focus3.com. And lots of cool stuff. We'll be launching a newsletter in 2022 that'll come direct to email, which will encourage people to sign up for that. I'm on Twitter at Timothy Kight, K-I-G-H-T, at Timothy Kight. No N, it's Kite, not night. And also on LinkedIn. And the same Timothy Kight. And another place is you can go to YouTube, and if you were to type in 2 minutes with TK, there's a series of 50 2-minute videos that we did back in 2019 that are pretty cool. And I know a lot of teachers, a lot of businesses, a lot of organizations use those 2 minutes with TK. They're free, obviously. So that's a great place to go to get some stuff as well.
Awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes so my listeners have easy access to it. But I want to thank you so much for taking time with me today during the holidays. It's greatly appreciated. I had a blast, and it was an awesome conversation. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Charles, and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas. As always, guys, keep reaching for the stars. Fall flat on your face, but remember, whenever we fall, always get up.
Thank you for joining us today on the Edge of Greatness podcast. If you haven't yet, please take a minute now to subscribe and review our show. Join us again next week as we continue to dig deeper into the key components of greatness. The path to greatness is never linear, so remember to keep pursuing greatness no matter what. Keep stretching your abilities, reach for the stars, and fall flat on your face. But remember, no matter what happens, whenever we fall, always get up. Until next time, I'm Charles Schultz, and this was the Edge of Greatness podcast.